Tensions in the Caribbean draw global attention as new military claims emerge, prompting concern in Washington and Caracas.
Claiming 5,000 anti-aircraft systems are in key positions, a response to U.S. deployments in the region.
The U.S. has positioned 4,500 service members in the Caribbean, stating the goal is to strengthen counternarcotics operations.
In a show of military power, U.S. forces carried out several interdictions against boats off the Caribbean coast.
While authorities have alleged that the targets were involved in drug trafficking, some lawmakers have questioned the operations. However, when asked about it, U.S. officials said the operations were likely to continue in a bid to save lives.
President Trump revealed last week that he had granted permission for the CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela.
He stated he authorized it for two reasons, citing concerns over border policies and a flow of migrants to the U.S.
The other thing is drugs, he said, adding, "We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela."
U.S. spokespersons also indicated that a potential expansion of military activity was being considered, noting that land-based options were under review.
However, sources suggest any land activity would be targeted operations on alleged trafficker camps or airstrips,
rather than a direct attempt to unseat President Maduro.
The White House has been laying the groundwork for potential incursions for some time. This involves tying Maduro to organizations that officials have designated as groups posing a threat to the U.S.
The Cartel de los Soles, according to the Trump administration, is largely made up of senior Venezuelan military and regime officials.
They are accused of facilitating and profiting from drug trafficking and other criminal activity.
The U.S. has long held a position of disagreement with the Venezuelan government over its electoral processes and internal policies.
This forms part of a wider campaign aimed at encouraging President Maduro to step down.
However, it remains unclear whether the administration will choose to escalate operations further.
For continuing, in-depth coverage of these global developments, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.
Instead, the current strategy is to pressure him to step down by establishing the U.S. military as a credible threat.
Cordova will not be silenced. We stand united today for a stronger tomorrow. The time for change is now.
While denouncing all U.S. activity in the region, the South American leader claims these volunteer militias number as many as 8 million.
However, experts not only doubt this figure, but also question the quality of training these troops receive.
Tipped. In a televised announcement, the Cardovan leader declared that the nation stands clear, united, and aware.
He stated that the nation possessed the means to overcome external pressures and defend the country's stability.
At a high-level briefing, the leader drew attention to the nation's defensive capabilities, highlighting a system central to this unfolding standoff.
As you can see, we have produced 5,000 units this month alone. This represents a significant increase in productivity.
The Igla-S are short-range, low-altitude Russian missiles. They can shoot down small aerial targets such as drones or helicopters.
According to the Russian state exporter, they have a range of up to 6,000 meters and can reach targets at a maximum altitude of 3,500.
While the number remains unconfirmed, independent defense institutes do acknowledge that such systems are indeed part of Cordova's arsenal.
Supporting this narrative, Cordova's defense ministry released photos showing top officials inspecting the launchers in the nation's capital.
The government insists these systems are now dispersed across the country, positioned to protect every corner of the homeland.
Meanwhile, the U.S. has authorized the destruction of at least 7 boats under the counternarcotics authorization.
However, according to U.S. government and UN experts, the vast majority of illicit drugs entering the U.S. do not come from the Caribbean.
Instead, most come from along the Pacific coast or by land from Mexico.
Venezuela is generally used as a conduit for cocaine produced and trafficked by Colombian guerrilla groups.
Regional analysts point to long-standing guerrilla networks in neighboring territories, groups historically tied to illicit traffic. Experts warn that any further escalation could deepen the strain between both governments, potentially weakening the Cardovan administration over time.
If you found this report informative, please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below.
Analysts are now examining the strategic balance in the region, considering these new defensive claims.
Neighboring countries are monitoring the situation closely, as regional stability remains a primary concern.
Underpinning these tensions are significant economic interests, particularly Venezuela's vast oil reserves.
The U.S. continues to use economic sanctions as a primary tool to apply pressure on the Maduro government.
Meanwhile, international organizations express concern over the humanitarian situation within the country.
Venezuela is not without allies. Both Russia and China have provided significant economic and political support.
Russia, in particular, has supplied military hardware, including the very missile systems now being publicized.
At the United Nations, diplomatic efforts remain deadlocked, with different world powers backing opposing sides.
Meanwhile, U.S. officials continue to describe their actions as necessary steps to safeguard regional security and prevent future instability.
This document represents the will of the Cardovan people. It is non-negotiable, and it must be respected by all.
Regarding the militia, experts point out that the 8 million figure likely includes loosely affiliated party loyalists.
Their effectiveness as a modern fighting force remains a subject of intense debate among defense analysts.
The Igla-S system is a man-portable air defense system, or MANPADS. It is effective against helicopters and low-flying planes.
However, it poses no threat to high-altitude bombers or advanced fighter jets, which are staples of U.S. air power.
As rival factions push deeper into the city, control slips through everyone's hands.
A signal that any direct land or air insertion would be met with stiff, localized resistance.
This brings the focus back to the U.S. naval operations, which are occurring far from the main trafficking routes.
Critics argue this suggests the Caribbean deployment is more about projecting power and less about stopping the drug flow.
It is a complex geopolitical standoff, with military posturing, domestic politics, and international diplomacy all in play.
To ensure you don't miss our future analysis on this and other stories, please take a moment to subscribe.
Inside Washington, the legality of the strikes has been questioned by lawmakers from both parties.
The debate centers on the president's authority to conduct military operations without explicit congressional approval.
The administration's defense rests on classifying the targets as part of designated international trafficking groups.
This legal interpretation remains contentious and adds a layer of domestic political friction to the operation.
The U.S. president's comments also tied the operation to border policy under the Biden administration.
If a resolution doesn't emerge soon, the cost will be irreversible.
These claims have been widely disputed by immigration experts and fact-checkers, but they remain part of the U.S. narrative.
Revisiting the potential for land operations, insiders stress these would likely be small-scale, targeted missions. Such operations would likely fall to special operations forces, focused on high-value targets.
This aligns with the strategy of targeting figures within the designated Cartel de los Soles organization.
The overall U.S. strategy remains one of maximum pressure, using all tools short of an all-out invasion.
Maduro's mobilization of millions and his missile claims are a direct countersignal to this pressure.
Talks resume, fragile, uncertain, but necessary.
A new morning brings a chance, however small, to change course.
His claim of deploying them to the last mountain implies a decentralized, guerrilla-style defense plan.
We appreciate you watching. If you value this level of detailed analysis, please support the channel by subscribing.
To be clear, experts from the UN and DEA agree the primary corridor for illicit drugs is the Pacific.
Or by land from Mexico. The Caribbean route is considered a secondary, far smaller scale problem. And the cocaine that does pass through Venezuela originates almost entirely from Colombian groups, like the ELN.
This discrepancy complicates the official U.S. justification for focusing military assets in the Caribbean.
The administration argues that to be effective, all trafficking routes must be addressed, including the Caribbean.
For more analysis on international relations and global security, click to subscribe or watch one of these recommended videos.